This is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today we're going to have a special video on disassembly, reassembly, and what the yellow rubber plug on the bottom of the Omega Vert juicer is. I occasionally get a question, hey John, what's the plug on the Omega Vert juicer used for? Should I have it in? Should I have it out? What does it do? And also sometimes people have challenges with assembling the machine. I remember the first time I saw the machine at a trade show, I took it apart and then tried to put it back together and I couldn't do it. And I usually really am good at figuring things out, but I was just kind of stumped with the Omega Vert. But once you do it a few times, it's really simple and real easy, and there's only a few steps to follow. So let's get into the video. First, you see we have the assembled Omega Vert juicer. I have a close-up shot of just the top. We don't necessarily need to see the motor body. Now, to unassemble the machine, you need to take the top and you need to rotate it to the right, and the top piece is going to come off. At that point, then you're left with the bowl, the juicing screen, the wiping blade, and the auger assembly. We're just going to go ahead and carefully pull out the juicing screen, and with that, the auger and the wiping blade assembly comes. So now you just simply dump this over. The auger comes out, and simply to disassemble these, you just pull these apart just like that. Finally, you have the juicing bowl, and for that one, you turn it to the left, and that's basically going to unlock, and then you could pull this straight up. So that's how easy it is to disassemble. Next, we're going to talk about this flap. So when you get the machine in the mail, this flap should be fully plugged in. We could go ahead and pull this flap out, and you can see the flap right there. It's on a little hinge, so it goes in and comes out. So the main purpose of this flap is on the pulp ejection port. So the juice comes out this round port on the Omega Vert, and the pulp comes out this like rectangular port on the Omega Vert. What this little flap does is it basically plugs the hole. And you know, it is a flap, but it's not a solid flap. It's almost like a one-way valve. So what this does, it keeps the pulp inside the machine until there's sufficient back pressure to push the pulp out. Now, why would you want to keep the pulp inside the machine, or why would the machine want to keep the pulp inside the machine? That's to get a full extraction. If the pulp is kept in the machine longer, it's going to be able, the Vert's going to be able to literally wring out all the extra juice in that pulp. And it does that, and then finally lets it out when there's enough back pressure, when more pulp is coming in. Now, there is in some cases where you can get the whole machine filled up and backed up with pulp. Now, is that the problem of the little yellow flap, or what I would call the gatekeeper, because it literally keeps the pulp in there? Once again, when juicing, this should always be plugged in. Because the outlet hole on the Omega Vert juicer is just so small, there's not a wide amount of space for things to flow through there. Some things like stringy things such as kale and celery, strings, and even things like collards and other leafy greens can get stuck in this outlet port. So what I recommend you do in those cases is slice up things really fine into small little, basically diced up. So celery I would cut up into like 1/4 inch pieces to cut up all the strings. Same thing with the kale and the collards. I have an excellent video on YouTube entitled Best Practices When Juicing with the Omega Vert. Highly encourage you to watch that video to see how I juice successfully leafy greens and another recipe that a customer is having big problems with. But when doing it the right way, you're going to get successful results every single time. So that's what this yellow flap is here for. Always have it plugged in, and you remove it to clean it. And that's pretty much it. So now we're going to assemble the Omega Vert juicer. The first thing to remember is this little red dot. When assembling the juicer, the little red dot is always on the left side of the juicer if you're facing it from the back. So we're going to go ahead and put that on. It's facing the left side. Then we're going to go ahead and rotate this like that much to kind of lock it in place. It locks in place. Then you're going to take the screen assembly and the wiping blade assembly. These just go right into each other. And that's assembled. Really simple, real easy. The next thing you're going to want to do is on the top of the juicing screen, there's a little red dot. Now that red dot needs to line up with the red dot on the left side of the housing. If you do that, the screen will literally drop into place. If you don't do that, the screen's not going to drop into place. Next, we're going to take the juicing auger. Once again, that just goes in there, and then you just kind of push that down in there. It seats down nice and firmly. So the last thing we need to do to assemble it is take the feed chute. On the feed chute, there's a little triangle on this side of the unit. It's black on the 350, and it's red on the 330 model. we're gonna take that and line up this little triangle with the red dot, and then once that's in place, it seats down properly, and then you just turn it to the left and it locks into place. Then you can turn the machine on and it should turn on. Now, should you assemble it incorrectly, like we could take this part right here and put it on like this and put it on the wrong side, then lock it into place where the feed chute housing is in the front, and then guess what? It's not gonna turn on. You're gonna say, hey John, the juicer's defective. Well, you just assemble it incorrectly and it's not gonna work because there's a built-in safety switch that won't allow you to turn the machine on unless it is properly assembled. So simply go ahead and take this off. Once again, line up your arrows like you should, put it in place, turn it, and guess what? It starts right up. So hopefully today you've learned more about how to disassemble, reassemble, and also about the little yellow silicone flap on the bottom of the machine. Once again, that flap is in there to get the maximum yield and should always be put in, except during cleaning when you're gonna pull it out to clean the machine. Once again, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.